Everybody Loves Raymond ran on CBS from 1996 to 2005, and for 9 seasons, it turned a house on Long Island into the most familiar living room in American television. The comedy was built on proximity, interference, and the particular friction that only family can produce. That was 30 years ago. Of the 9 cast members in this video, 3 are gone. 6 are still here, living versions of themselves that the show could never have written. Peter Boyle was 60 when the pilot aired. Before he became Frank Barone, before any of it, he spent years inside a monastery trying to become a priest. That story is near the end. Stay for it. Some of this lands harder than a sitcom should. Number 1 is Patricia Heaton as Deborah Barone, the woman who held together a household that was constantly, aggressively falling apart around her. Deborah was the show's center of gravity, the person everyone leaned on and no one thanked. In 2026, Patricia Heaton is 68 years old. After Raymond, she spent 9 more seasons as another overworked mother, Frankie Heck, on ABC's The Middle, which ran from 2009 to 2018. She won 2 Emmy Awards for Deborah Barone and earned 7 consecutive nominations for the role. In 2024, she joined the Frasier revival on Paramount Plus in a recurring part. And in 2025, she starred opposite Al Pacino in the horror film The Ritual. Born in Bay Village, Ohio, on March 4, 1958, she was the 4th of 5 children. Her mother died of an aneurysm when Patricia was 12. Drama became her anchor. Ohio State for The Degree, William Esper in New York for The Craft, and a Broadway debut in Don't Get God Started in 1987. A brief first marriage to Konstantin Yankoglu ended before her second, to English actor David Hunt, began in 1990. They have 4 sons and have been together for 36 years. What the Raymond audience never saw was revealed on a podcast in 2021. After an incident during a board game with her adult sons, where she had been drinking and began slurring, one of her sons said from across the table, "Oh great, Mom, you cannot even talk." She has been sober for more than 5 years. Deborah Barone spent 9 seasons pushing back against a family that would not give her room. Patricia Heaton is still pushing, still working, and that persistence carried across 4 decades and a private reckoning no audience was ever meant to see turned out to be the truer performance. Number 2 is Brad Garrett as Robert Barone, Ray's older brother, the 6'9" police officer who spent his life believing the world had chosen his sibling over him. Brad Garrett stands 6 feet 9 inches tall in real life, a fact the show mined for physical comedy but never fully explained. Born Brad Gerstenfeld on April 14, 1960, in Oxnard, California, he is 65 years old in 2026. 6 weeks at UCLA was all it took before he dropped out to pursue stand-up comedy full-time, beginning at the Ice House in Pasadena and the Improv in Hollywood. In 1984, at 24, he became the first $100,000 grand champion in the comedy category on Star Search. 3 Emmy Awards followed for Robert Barone. His first marriage to Jill Diven lasted from 1999 until their divorce in 2007. They have 2 children. In 2008, he met actress Isabel Quella at a gallery in Boston. They tried to marry 4 separate times, thwarted by COVID, wildfires, and mudslides, before finally marrying on November 11, 2021, in Montecito, California. The comedy club bearing his name at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas is where he still performs regularly. Voice work has spanned decades alongside the stand-up. Bloat in Finding Nemo, Auguste Gusteau in Ratatouille, Eeyore in Christopher Robin. Most recently, he voiced a character in Pixar's Elio in 2025. Everyone assumed Robert Barone was where Brad Garrett would stop. The opposite turned out to be true. The man who played television's most overlooked brother became one of the most quietly consistent working actors of his generation. And that reversal is its own kind of answer to every slight Robert ever absorbed. Number 3 is Doris Roberts as Marie Barone, the meddling, endlessly loving mother who made life impossible for everyone in the house and somehow made you love her for it. Marie was the show's engine. Every major conflict on Raymond traced back to her kitchen, her opinions, or her lasagna. Born Doris Mae Green, on November 4, 1925, in St. Louis, Missouri, to a family of Russian Jewish immigrants. She was raised in the Bronx after her father abandoned the family. She trained at the neighborhood playhouse under Sanford Meisner and at the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg. Her Broadway debut came in 1955, 2 full decades before television made her famous. She won 5 Emmy Awards, 4 for Marie Barone and 1 for a guest role on Saint Elsewhere in 1983, playing a homeless woman facing the amputation of her feet. Before Raymond, she played Mildred Krebs on Remington Steele for 4 seasons. In 2002, she testified before the United States Senate about age discrimination in Hollywood, declaring that many of her peers, talented actresses in the 40 to 60-year-old range, were forced to live on unemployment because the industry had decided they were finished. She was married twice. To Michael Kanata from 1956 to 1962, with whom she had a son, and to novelist William Goyen from 1963 until his death from leukemia in 1983. Doris Roberts died in her sleep on April 17, 2016, at her home in Los Angeles. She was 90 years old. The cause was a massive hemorrhagic stroke, following years of pulmonary hypertension. Marie Barone ended in 2005. Doris Roberts did not. She kept taking roles, kept testifying before Congress, kept insisting that a woman's career does not come with an expiration date, and that continuation, sustained across 7 decades, was always the real performance. Number 4 is Monica Horan as Amy McDougal, Roberts' tentative, quietly sturdy girlfriend and eventually his wife. She appeared in 66 episodes and held her ground, alongside performers who had been commanding rooms since before she arrived. Monica Horan was born on January 29, 1963, in Darby, Pennsylvania, the daughter of a courthouse officer and a clerk. At 63 years old in 2026, she earned a theater degree from Hofstra University in 1984 and moved to New York, where she worked as a telephone sales agent for Telecharge while performing in off-Broadway shows that almost no one saw. What most of the Raymond audience never knew was that Amy McDougal was played by the wife of the man who created the show. Horan married Phil Rosenthal on April 22, 1990, 6 years before Raymond existed. Before the wedding, she converted to Judaism. Rosenthal fought to keep their marriage private during the show's run, so viewers would judge her work, not her proximity. They have 2 children, Ben, a writer and actor, and Lily, who married chef Mason Royal in October 2025. After Raymond, she appeared on The Bold and the Beautiful, earning a Daytime Emmy nomination in 2017, and guest starred on Hot, in Cleveland, The Middle, and Better Things. She appears regularly on her husband's Netflix series Somebody Feed Phil, whose 8th season premiered in June 2025. Everyone assumed Amy would be the quiet one. Monica Horan made that quietness into something precise, and in doing so, she returned to the work on her own terms, without fanfare, and the absence of noise turned out to be its own kind of authority. Number 5 is Ray Romano as Ray Barone, the man whose name was on the show and whose face was in every living room on Monday nights for 9 years. The show worked because Romano played obliviousness with just enough self-awareness to keep the audience from turning on him. In 2026, Ray Romano is 68 years old. Born on December 21, 1957, in Queens, New York, the son of Albert and Lucy Romano, he grew up in an Italian-American household that became the raw material for the show that made him famous. Until his late 20s, he was a bank teller. The Johnny Walker Comedy Search in 1989 launched his stand-up career, and a set on The Late Show with David Letterman brought him to CBS. Everybody Loves Raymond launched the following year. By season 5, he was earning $800,000 per episode, and by the final seasons, he was the highest-paid actor on television. The career after the sitcom has been broader and more serious than anyone expected. Scorsese cast him as mob lawyer Bill Bufalino in The Irishman. Romano wrote, directed, and starred in Somewhere in Queens. 3 seasons of the crime series Get Shorty followed. In 2024, he appeared in Fly Me to the Moon and No Good Deed on Netflix. February 2026 brought his Broadway debut and his first grandchild in the same month. He married Anna Romano on October 11, 1987, after meeting her at a bank in Queens. They have 4 children. Their marriage has lasted nearly 40 years. Everyone assumed Ray Barone was who Ray Romano would always be. The correction came slowly over a decade of dramatic roles and a Broadway stage, and it turned out the man behind the character had been underestimated all along, including by himself. Number 6 is Madylin Sweeten as Allie Barone, Ray and Deborah's eldest child, the daughter who was often the most emotionally perceptive person in the room, despite being the youngest cast member, old enough to have lines. Madylin Sweeten was born on June 27, 1991, in Brownwood, Texas. At 34 in 2026, she was 5 when she was cast and 14 when the show ended. Her twin brothers, Sawyer and Sullivan, played her on-screen brothers, and all three moved to California when the twins were 6 months old. After the show, acting gave way to design. An associate degree from the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in 2018 led to work at the Joneses LA, a Los Angeles furniture company specializing in custom pieces. Theater pulled her back in a different capacity. She serves as a production manager and set designer for the Loft Ensemble. Guest roles on Grey's Anatomy and Lucifer kept the door to acting open. But the life she built is one in which the camera is optional rather than central. In 2018, she married actor Sean Dury, and in April 2025, they welcomed their first child, a son named River. At the November 2025 reunion special, she brought her baby to the recreated set and told the audience that her family works with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline because her brother Sawyer took his own life in 2015. Allie Barone watched everything. Madylin Sweeten grew up to be the woman who chose what to watch and what to walk away from. And that simple distinction is the truest thing about leaving a show and keeping on living. Number 7 is Sullivan Sweeten as Michael Barone, one of the twin sons. Sullivan shared the role with his identical twin Sawyer, who played Jeffrey. The two were cast at 16 months old, which means they spent the first 9 years of their conscious lives on a television set before they had any framework for understanding what that meant. Sullivan was born on May 12, 1995, in Brownwood, Texas. At 30 years old in 2026, he appeared in 142 episodes of the show. When it ended, he was 10. The industry held no appeal after that. Apart from one appearance in a 2017 short film called Casting, Sullivan left entirely. Before Sawyer's death, the two purchased a house together in Riverside, California. Sullivan still lives there. No confirmed information exists about his romantic life or his work outside of acting. Deliberately, quietly, he has chosen to exist outside the public record. At the November 2025 reunion on CBS, he told the studio audience he would not change anything about his time on the show. When the conversation turned to his brother's death, the composure it cost him was visible. Most of his good memories, he said, happened on that set. Michael Barone never had a choice about being on television. Sullivan Sweeten made the choice to leave, and the weight of that decision, carried quietly and without explanation, is the part of this story no audience was ever going to see. Number 8 is Peter Boyle, as Frank Barone, the patriarch, the man in the recliner, the one who turned cruelty into a spectator sport and somehow made it feel like love. What the Raymond audience almost never knew was the life Peter Boyle had lived before Frank Barone existed. Born on October 18, 1935, in Norristown, Pennsylvania, he grew up Catholic and entered the Christian Brothers religious order while attending LaSalle University. 3 years inside a monastery followed, an experience he later described as living in the Middle Ages. When he lost his calling, he left the order, joined the Navy, and suffered a nervous breakdown during his service. After recovering, he moved to New York and studied acting under Uta Hagen, supporting himself for 5 years as a postal worker, a waiter, and an office temp. His breakthrough came in the 1970 film Joe, playing a violent bigot so convincingly he turned down the lead in The French Connection for fear of being typecast. Then Mel Brooks cast him as the monster in Young Frankenstein, and Boyle performed Putting on the Ritz in Top Hat and Tails, and everything changed. The man who had nearly become a priest was now, permanently, the tap-dancing monster. On that set, he met Rolling Stone reporter Lorraine Alterman while still in full monster makeup and asked her on a date. They married in 1977. John Lennon served as best man. Through Lorraine's friendship with Yoko Ono, Boyle and Lennon had become close friends. Their first daughter, Lucy, was born 2 days after Lennon's murder in December 1980. A near-fatal stroke in 1990 left him speechless and immobile for 6 months. Recovery brought an Emmy for his guest role on The X-Files in 1996, the same year Raymond premiered. A heart attack on the Raymond set in 1999 required an angioplasty, after which he returned and earned 7 Emmy nominations for Frank Barone across the show's run. The award never came. Among the principal cast, he was the only one left without that honor. Peter Boyle died on December 12, 2006, at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He was 71 years old. The cause was multiple myeloma and heart disease. Frank Barone gave Peter Boyle the audience. Boyle gave back a life that ran from a monastery to a monster costume to John Lennon's wedding to a recliner on Long Island. And the trade between those lives, measured against what it cost to keep going through all of them, was never close to even. Number 9 is Sawyer Sweeten as Jeffrey Barone, a child who appeared on screen before he could walk and spent the first 9 years of his life in front of a studio audience that knew his face better than he knew it himself. Sawyer Storm Sweeten was born on May 12, 1995 in Brownwood, Texas. Cast at 16 months old alongside his twin Sullivan, he appeared in 139 episodes. When the show ended in 2005, he was 10 years old, with no significant acting credits to follow. His mother later described how the transition from a television set, with its constant attention and structured routine, to ordinary adolescence seemed to disorient him. The schedule, the security, the people treating him as someone worth watching, all of it disappeared when the show did. He and Sullivan bought a house together in Riverside, California. By his late teens, those closest to him noticed changes. On April 23, 2015, while visiting family in Texas, Sawyer Sweeten died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 19 years old, 3 weeks short of his 20th birthday. Ray Romano called him a wonderful and sweet kid. Phil Rosenthal remembered all 3 Sweeten children as kids who never failed to make the cast laugh. At the 30th anniversary reunion in November 2025, Madylin told the audience that their family now works with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that 90% of people who seek treatment are helped. Sullivan said none of them really expected what happened. Jeffrey Barone was a child on a sitcom, and that is where his story was supposed to end. Sawyer Sweeten was a real person, and what his family built from that loss became something the rest of the world could use. If you or someone you know is struggling, the number is 988. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.